My 8-year-old son called 911 because my stepfather locked himself in my twin daughter's room for 6 hours. Cops busted in, and what they found got him arrested on the spot. I flew home from deployment and froze when I found out. I was sitting on the cold vinyl chair outside the pediatric trauma unit in Ann Arbor, Michigan, staring at the dried blood on my forearm when Detective Ray Mercer knelt in front of me. His voice was steady, too steady, the way cops talk when everything inside them is shaking. "Jonah, we need to talk before the doctors come back." I didn't answer. My whole world was inside that room. My 10-year-old son, Noah, and my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, clinging to each other like they were trying to keep from drowning. Lily hadn't said a single word since they pulled her out of that house. Not one. Ray exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. He'd known me since high school. He'd been at my wedding. He'd coached my son in Little League. And now he was the one telling me the kind of things a man doesn't come back from. "Jonah, we arrested Ethan Carver." Just hearing the name made something break open in my chest. Ethan, my ex-wife's new husband. The picture-perfect corporate charmer I never trusted. The guy who bought my kids matching bikes and posted pictures like he was auditioning for Dad of the Year. The guy my ex-wife, Maya, swore was the safest man she'd ever known. Ray continued, voice hardening. "We also found 2 passports in his bag. One with Lily's photo, one with a different name." My stomach twisted. He was planning to take her? Ray didn't have to answer. His silence said everything. But that wasn't the part that gutted me. That wasn't why my hands were still shaking like I'd been dropped back into a firefight. It was what Ray said next. "Jonah," Lily tried to tell Maya. More than once. The hallway spun. I had to grip the wall to stay standing. Maya said Lily has a history of overreacting, that she misinterprets things. She told us she thought Lily was jealous of Ethan. Ray swallowed hard. The neighbors heard Lily crying more than once. One said they saw Ethan carrying her out of her room with his hand over her mouth. My blood went cold, then boiling hot. "And Maya didn't report it," I said, my voice cracking. "She didn't even ask for help?" Ray hesitated. "She hired a lawyer 2 weeks ago. A custody lawyer, Jonah. Not a criminal one." My knees almost buckled. That meant one thing. Maya knew something was wrong. Maybe not the full horror, but enough. And she was preparing to protect herself, not our kids. I felt sick. I'd spent the last 7 months deployed in Kuwait as a logistics specialist with the Army Reserve, counting the days until I could see my kids again. I thought the distance in their voices on the phone was because they missed me, or because Ethan was trying too hard to be their buddy. I never expected this. Never imagined the monster was already living in their house, with their mother pretending she didn't smell the rot. Ray placed a hand on my shoulder. "There's more. And you need to hear it before I let you go inside." My body went rigid. "More." He nodded slowly. "When we searched Ethan's laptop, we found financial transfers, offshore accounts. We found communication with people, bad people. And we found something else you're not going to handle well." I stared straight into his eyes. "Say it." Ray looked away for the first time all night, like the words themselves felt wrong coming out of his mouth. "Jonah, Ethan wasn't planning to run with just Lily." The world stopped. "What do you mean?" Ray drew in a breath, bracing himself. "There was a second passport, a second itinerary, and it wasn't for Ethan." He turned his eyes back toward the trauma room window, toward my kids. "It was for Noah." My heart split open. And before I could even process what that meant, Ray added, "And the sickest part? The part that changes everything." He leaned close, almost whispering. "Your ex-wife helped him apply for it." When Ray finally let me into the room, Lily was asleep, sedated after hours of shaking and sobbing, while Noah sat in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand like he was the parent and she was the one who needed protecting. He looked up at me with eyes that didn't belong on a 10-year-old's face. "Too old, too tired, too guilty." "Dad," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I should have." I cut him off before he could say more. "No, you did everything right. You saved your sister." But inside, I was already replaying every moment that led us here. Every warning sign I ignored. Every gut feeling I pushed away because I wanted to believe Maya knew how to protect our kids while I was overseas. Back when Maya and I met in Grand Rapids, we were 22, broke and stupidly optimistic. I was working odd construction jobs before enlisting, and she was studying graphic design. We fell fast, too fast. And by the time we realized we weren't growing in the same direction, we already had Noah on the way. Then Lily came 2 years later, and Maya's resentment toward my military commitments deepened. Every deployment, every drill weekend, every emergency call-up. She saw all of it as me choosing the army over her. She never understood that I did all of it for her. For our kids. For a future that felt more stable than the paycheck-to-paycheck scramble we were living in. By the time we divorced, she'd already checked out of the marriage. But I still trusted her as a mother. Even when we fought about custody, even when she accused me of being too rigid, I believed she would never let our kids be harmed. And then came Ethan. If I'm honest, I hated him on sight. Not for the usual ex-husband reasons, jealousy or pride, but because everything about him felt crafted. His perfectly casual sweaters, his meticulously neat beard, the way he always looked just slightly amused. Like nothing in the world could touch him. Maya said he made her feel seen. I said that was therapist language she got from TikTok. The first time my kids mentioned him, I was in Kuwait. I remember the exact moment. The grainy video call with the wind whipping sand across the tent. Noah showing me the new Lego set Ethan bought him. He says we can call him Dad too, if we want. I laughed it off at the time. I told Noah he had one dad, and that was that. But later that night, when the bass finally went quiet, something in that conversation started gnawing at me. Hard. There were other things too, micro things small enough to ignore if you wanted to. Like Lily suddenly refusing video calls when Ethan was home. Like how she always seemed to sit stiffly when he entered the frame. Like how Noah's messages got shorter, more cautious. And then the nightmares started. Maya brushed them off as adjustment anxiety. I told her to get Lily checked by a child therapist. She said not everything needed a medical intervention. We fought about it viciously. 2 weeks later, she sent me a picture. Lily on Ethan's lap at a barbecue. His arm wrapped tight around her middle. Her smile forced. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was being the jealous ex. That Maya would never, ever put our kids at risk. But here's the truth, the part that still makes me sick. I saw the signs. I felt the wrongness. And I still did nothing. Because I trusted the woman who used to love me. And she trusted a man who deserved a bullet, not a wedding ring. Now my kids were broken. My daughter traumatized. My son burdened with a guilt he didn't deserve. And Maya? She was sitting in a police interview room right now. Lawyered up, spinning a story about being manipulated. Confused, overwhelmed. But the more Ray told me, the more I realized something chilling. Maya didn't just ignore the warnings. She didn't just overlook the danger. She helped Ethan. Maybe not directly, but enough. And that was a betrayal I never saw coming. The day after the hospital intake, I drove straight to Maya's house. The same house I used to help pay the mortgage on. The same house where my daughter's nightmares had become real. It was surrounded by police tape. A yellow band across the doorway like a wound trying to close. Detective Ray met me at the curb before I could push past the uniform standing guard. Jonah, you can't go in there yet. I took a step toward the door anyway. I need to see what he did. You don't. His hand landed on my shoulder. Firm. You really don't. He wasn't wrong. I'd seen horrors overseas. Dead soldiers, dead civilians, things burned into my brain. But nothing prepared me for what I saw through Lily's terrified eyes. The last thing I needed was to see the scene where it happened. The bed. The toys. The trapped childhood. Still, the fury in me needed a place to go, so I turned it on the next closest target. Where's Maya? Ray's jaw flexed. In custody. Not arrested yet, but detained. Her lawyer is fighting every inch. Does she still claim she knew nothing? Ray exhaled sharply. She's saying she believed Ethan's explanations. That Lily misunderstood. That she never saw anything concrete. Concrete. My daughter begging her for help wasn't concrete enough. And Noah? I asked. Ray's eyes softened. He's the reason she called 911 at all. What do you mean? He hesitated, like he needed to brace himself before saying it. Noah heard Lily crying. Not the normal kind. The kind that makes your blood stop. He went to the neighbor's house in the middle of the night and begged them to call the police. I swallowed hard. My son. My brave, terrified little boy. And Maya? I asked quieter this time. She was asleep, Ray said flatly. Or pretending to be. A cold numbness filled me, almost worse than rage. While my daughter was being hurt behind a locked door, Maya was in her room, turning up the TV, crying, hoping it would stop if she ignored it long enough. No amount of therapy will fix that kind of cowardice. Ray cleared his throat. There's more. Of course there was. Every time he said those words, something inside me split a little further. We searched Ethan's cloud backups, found evidence he'd been scouting other families, other kids. I felt the world tilt again. So he's done this before? Ray nodded grimly. Likely, but always out of reach. No hard evidence. Clean record. Perfect public life. And now he gets away with it again. I muttered, bitterness clawing up my throat. Because guys like him always do. Ray shifted, uncomfortable. His bail hearing is tomorrow. My jaw clenched. He's going to make bail, isn't he? He has money, connections, and his family already hired one of the most aggressive defense lawyers in the state. So yes, I snapped. So, likely, Ray said carefully. That was it. That was the moment something inside me burned down to ash and rebuilt itself into something colder, sharper, unrecognizable. I'd spent my whole life believing in systems. The Army's chain of command. The courts. Procedures. Processes. Order. And where had that gotten me? A daughter with trauma no child should carry. A son blaming himself for being too slow. An ex-wife who chose comfort over safety. And a predator walking out of jail because he knew exactly how to look innocent. No, not this time. Not my kids. Later that night, while Noah slept curled up on the couch at my sister's house, I sat at the kitchen table with my closest friend, Derek Hayes, who had served with me during my first deployment. He saw the look in my eyes before I even said a word. What's the plan? He asked quietly. I'm going to learn everything about Ethan Carver, I said. Everything he's done, everyone he's hurt, every weakness he has. And when you find it? Derek asked. I rubbed my hands together slowly, purposefully, like I was warming them over a fire. Then, I said, I'm going to make sure he never touches another kid again. Derek nodded once. I'm in. I didn't thank him, I didn't need to, because the truth was simple and terrifying. I had officially stopped thinking like a father and started thinking like a soldier. And I wasn't planning to follow the rules this time. 3 days after the hospital, Ethan walked out of jail on a $400,000 bond posted by a cousin in California. Some tech guy who looked like he'd never broken a sweat in his life. The reporters called it expected. I called it what it was. Proof the system wasn't built for people like me or my kids. That night, I sat in my sister's basement staring at Ethan's bail paperwork, absorbing every line, every restriction, every loophole I could exploit. Derek was across from me, laptop open, researching everything he could find on Ethan's past. But the real twist didn't come from Ethan. Came from Ray. He called at 11:52 p.m. I remember the time because I'd been staring at the clock, wondering how the hell I was supposed to sleep again after everything. Jonah, he said quietly, I need you at the station. Now. My stomach sank. Is it the kids? Maya? No. Something else. Something we found in the digital forensics review. Those words alone were enough to get me across town in 10 minutes flat. When Ray brought me into the small interview room, the lights were flickering. The kind of flicker that always made me feel like I was back in some makeshift tent overseas. But what was sitting on the metal table was worse. A tablet. Ethan's tablet. Unlocked. Open to a folder named Sundays. I braced myself. What I saw was bad, but not in the way I expected. There were no photos of Lily or Noah in that folder. Nothing illegal. Nothing obviously predatory. Just the videos. 12 of them. All of Maya. Not sexual. Not embarrassing. Just Maya sitting in various rooms of the house, crying quietly, sometimes talking to herself. Ray pressed play on the first one. It was Maya in Lily's room, weeks before everything happened, sitting on the edge of Lily's bed with her head in her hands. "I don't know what to do anymore," she whispered. "He says I'm imagining it. He says I'm jealous. But Lily's scared. And I don't know who to believe." My breath caught. Ray watched me carefully. She didn't know these were being recorded. Ethan had cameras hidden in vents, smoke detectors, even a lamp. Another video. Maya pacing the hallway with her phone in her hand. "I think something's wrong with him," she said, voice trembling. "But he keeps telling me I'm unstable, that I have anxiety, that if I say anything, Jonah will try to take the kids. I can't lose them." Another. Maya at the kitchen table, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "He tells me Lily is lying, that Noah is acting strange because of Jonah's deployment. He says if I report anything, CPS will say I failed as a mother." Ray shut the tablet. "Jonah, Ethan wasn't just grooming your children. He was grooming her, gaslighting her, getting into her head." I felt dizzy. So she did know something was off. "She suspected," Ray corrected. "But Ethan had her isolated, scared, doubting herself, manipulated to hell. Honestly. She was mentally trapped long before he touched your daughter." I sank into the chair, stunned. This wasn't the twist I expected. Not even close. "You need to understand," Ray continued. "Ethan is smarter than any predator I've seen in 20 years. He builds perfect narratives, creates fear, creates dependency. He convinces women they're crazy. He convinces kids they'll never be believed." I stared at the blank table. "So Maya's not just negligent," I said slowly. "She was groomed too." Ray nodded once. "And if you want the whole truth, we think Ethan had a plan for her too. There are emails, drafts, conversations with someone overseas. He was preparing to cut ties with her entirely." "Meaning what?" I whispered. Ray slid a single printed message across the table. It was from Ethan to an unknown contact overseas. "She served her purpose. Once the kids are relocated, she becomes a liability." My blood ran cold. "Jonah," Ray said, voice grave, "your ex-wife wasn't just blind. She was a target. I didn't defend her. I didn't forgive her. But for the first time I understood. Ethan hadn't destroyed just my daughter's safety. He'd been dismantling my entire family, one piece at a time. And I had underestimated him in every possible way." I left the station that night with a sick feeling crawling under my skin. I wasn't used to being wrong. Not about people, not about danger, not about threats. Overseas, misreading a situation got people killed. Here, back home, my misread almost cost my daughter her life. But one thing was clear now. Ethan wasn't just a predator. He was a strategist, planner, a man who built his entire life around manipulation. And I wasn't going to beat a man like that with emotions. I needed a plan. Not a father's plan. A soldier's. By the time I got back to my sister's house, dawn was breaking. The sky was that dull gray blue that makes everything feel colder. Derek was sitting on the porch steps, 2 mugs of coffee next to him, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept either. "You good?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I know what I need to do." He waited, sipping his coffee like we were gearing up for one of our old missions overseas. "Ethan didn't just hurt Lily," I said. "He broke Maya down. He tried to isolate the kids. He planned to take them out of the country. That doesn't happen overnight." Derek nodded. "So he's done it before. Or tried." I pulled out the folder Ray had let me copy. I want his past. Every address. Every school he lived near. Every job. Every person he blackmailed. Every woman he groomed. Every kid he went near. "Not all that will show up in public records," Derek said. "We'll need someone who knows how to dig the ugly stuff out." Already thought of that. I grabbed my phone and dialed a number I swore I'd never call again. Kane Mercer, Ray's older brother. Former Army intelligence analyst. Dishonorably discharged for hacking into a federal contractor's servers to expose corruption. A genius. A deviant. A man who existed in the grayest gray area imaginable. If I was going to hunt a monster, I needed another one on my side. Kane answered on the second ring. His voice was the same, low, mocking, too calm. Well, if it isn't Staff Sergeant Jonah Hale. Haven't heard from you since you told me to lose your number. I need your help, I said. There was a short silence, then a slow exhale. I heard about your daughter. I'm in. You didn't even hear what I want. I don't need to. Anyone who hurts a kid deserves to vanish. Derek shot me a sharp look, but I kept my eyes forward. Kane, I need access to Ethan's digital footprint. Cloud accounts, hidden backups, deleted emails, encrypted messages. Everything. You want his whole life stripped bare, Kane said. Fine, but that's just intel. What's the actual goal here, Jonah? I didn't sugarcoat it. I want to dismantle him. Not legally. Strategically. I want every victim he left behind. Every person he coerced. Every mistake he ever made. And I want to turn them into a hammer. A low whistle. You're not thinking small. No, I can't. Not with someone like him. All right, Kane said. I'll send a secure link in an hour. After I hung up, Derek looked at me carefully. You know Kane doesn't do cleanup, he said. Whatever he finds, it'll be ugly. Good, I said. I want ugly, because monsters don't fear the law. They fear other monsters. That afternoon, I met with Ray privately. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. I'm going after Ethan's network, I said. Ray frowned. Jonah, these people are dangerous. So am I. He rubbed his temples. I can't protect you if you cross lines. I'm not asking you to protect me, I said quietly. I'm asking you to stay out of my way. Ray hesitated, then nodded once. An unspoken pact. When I left, my phone buzzed. Kane checked the link. You're gonna want to sit down. I opened it in the car. And that was the moment everything changed, again. Buried in Ethan's encrypted files was something I had never expected. Something that made my blood run cold. Something that wasn't just about my family, but about a second child connected to Ethan years before. A child who vanished without a trace. A case still open. And the kicker? Ethan wasn't the only adult tied to that disappearance. Maya was too. I must have stared at my phone for a full minute, unable to breathe. Kane's link wasn't just a folder, it was a goddamn universe. Thousands of files, messages, voice memos, hidden logs, encrypted backups Ethan thought he'd buried so deep no one would ever find them. But one tab slammed into me harder than anything else. Case 14B, Missing Juvenile 2016. I tapped it open. At first, it looked like any cold case file. A missing 6-year-old girl from Lansing vanished one night from her backyard. No forced entry. No witnesses. No suspects. Just another heartbreak buried in Michigan's unsolved archives. Except this case wasn't unsolved. Not to Ethan. Because right under the official police summary was a personal note Ethan had written. A smug, horrifying digital trophy he'd kept for himself. First successful relocation. Perfect execution. My heart stopped. Then it flipped. Then it shattered right in my chest. This wasn't a man who got lucky. This was a man who trained for what he tried to do to Lily. My daughter wasn't just a victim. She was meant to be his next relocation. But that wasn't the twist. Not even close. Because below Ethan's self-congratulatory note was a message sent to him 6 years ago by a burner email address. A voice memo. 22 seconds long. I hit play. A woman whispered shakily, like she was crying but trying to hide it. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep lying for you. I can't live with what we did. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. No, no, no. I replayed it 4 times. I knew the voice. I knew it like a scar I'd never escaped. It was Maya, my ex-wife, the mother of my children. The woman I thought was just blind, weak, manipulated. But she wasn't weak in 2016. She wasn't confused. She wasn't broken. She was involved. And suddenly the walls around me felt too close, too sharp, too loud. I called Kane immediately. "What the hell am I looking at?" He didn't hesitate. "You're looking at a woman who's done this before." "No," my voice cracked. "Maya would never." "You said the same thing about Ethan." Silence. Painful. Shattering. Then he continued, his tone colder now. "I ran her digital footprint. She knew Ethan long before you thought she met him. At least a year before your divorce. Maybe longer." I felt like I'd been punched. "She told me she met him at a conference." "She lied," Kane said simply. "And Jonah, this missing girl?" The timeline matches. Maya was in Lansing that week. Her phone pinged off a tower half a mile from the abduction site. My head spun. "And you're saying—" "Maya didn't just ignore things," Kane said. "She helped cover something up. Maybe not directly, maybe not knowingly. But she was involved with Ethan before he was Ethan. Before he had the polished corporate persona. Before you even realized your marriage was dying." Derek, sitting beside me, whispered, "Holy shit." I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Kane pushed on. "And Jonah? There's one more thing." I braced myself. "There's a draft message in her old deleted emails. It was unsent. Probably never meant to be seen." Kane paused. "I recovered it. Read it." He did. "If Jonah finds out the truth about Ethan, he'll take the kids. I can't lose them. I'll say whatever I have to." Everything inside me went still. Dead still. Maya didn't just fail my kids. She didn't just believe Ethan's lies. She chose Ethan. She chose him long before Lily ever cried out for help. She chose to betray me, our marriage, our children, and possibly another child, just to keep the fantasy of a perfect life alive. And that was the moment something final clicked inside me. This wasn't just about Ethan anymore. It was about both of them. And I was done waiting for justice. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve consequences. I thought I understood monsters. I'd seen real evil overseas. Men who killed without blinking. Men who justified the blood on their hands with religion, politics, revenge. I thought Ethan was just another one of them. Predator. A coward. Someone who hurt what he could overpower. But Kane wasn't done. Not by a long shot. He called me the next morning. Voice tight with something I'd never heard from him before. Fear. "Jonah, I just cracked the last encrypted folder. You need to sit down." "I'm already sitting." "No," he said. "Sit down." I sat. He took a long breath, then delivered the kind of truth that changes a man's blood temperature. Ethan wasn't trying to take Lily because of impulse, or obsession, or sickness. He paused. He was completing a cycle. A cycle of what? Grooming, recreating, replacing. I didn't understand, not yet. Kane continued, "Ethan only targets families with 2 children. 1 older boy, 1 younger girl." My stomach dropped. "Noah and Lily," I whispered. "Yes. And the girl he took in 2016? She had an older brother too. Same age gap. The pattern matches in every case I found." My mouth went dry. "Why? What is he trying to recreate?" Kane clicked something on his keyboard. I heard the static of a corrupted audio file being patched together. "Because Jonah, he was one of those children." The room tilted. "What are you saying?" I pulled his juvenile records. They were sealed, buried deep. "But you know me." Kane exhaled shakily. "When Ethan was 8, he and his little sister disappeared for 3 weeks. Their father kidnapped them during a custody battle. When the police finally found them, the father was dead. And the little sister—" Kane paused, voice hollow. "She didn't survive." I felt cold. So cold I could barely speak. "And Ethan?" I forced out. "He lived. But something in him snapped." Every psychological note in that file said the same thing. He is trying to replay the trauma. He is trying to win the scenario he lost. He is trying to control the ending. He's trying to replace his sister. I whispered. "Yes, he targets girls the same age she was." He targets families structured like his. He inserts himself into the role of stepfather. And once he gains total control, he runs with the child. Each time getting further away from the life he couldn't escape as a kid. I felt sick. So Lily wasn't just a victim. No, Kane said. She was his rewrite. A sick, cold rage filled my chest. And Maya? I asked, my voice barely human. Oh, Jonah, Kane whispered. You're not ready. Tell me. Kane clicked another file. Maya met Ethan in a support group. Not for divorce. Not for anxiety. For survivors of childhood trauma. What trauma? My voice was shaking. Her own father, Kane said. He was abusive. She never told you. I shut my eyes, gripping the table so hard my knuckles cracked. Maya wasn't just manipulated by Ethan, Kane continued. He targeted her, found her, studied her. He picked her because she'd recognize his wounds, and ignore the signs because she couldn't face her own past, couldn't breathe. He mirrored her trauma, Kane finished. He made her believe they were the same, that they shared darkness, that they were fixing each other. So that's why she protected him, I whispered. Because she thought she was saving the version of herself she couldn't save when she was a kid. Yes, Kane said softly. And that's why she helped hide the 2016 disappearance. Even if she didn't understand the full horror. Ethan convinced her she was protecting a child who was being rescued, not taken. My world didn't just tilt. It split. Ethan wasn't sick. He wasn't impulsive. He wasn't confused. He had a system, a mission, a pattern built out of grief and violence. He wanted to rebuild the family he lost over and over again until he got the ending he wanted. And he used Maya to do it. Not because she was weak, not because she was stupid, but because she was the perfect match for his brokenness. They weren't lovers. They weren't partners. They weren't a couple. They were a crime scene waiting to happen. And they almost destroyed my children in the process. Now that I knew the truth, the cold, horrifying reason behind all of it, there was only one question left. What happens to a man who tries to steal your children, to replace the ghosts of his past? My answer was simple. I become the ghost he should have feared. Revenge isn't a moment. It's a process, a slow burn, a plan you craft with shaking hands and a heartbeat that won't slow down because you know, no system on earth will ever deliver the justice your kids deserve. Once I learned the truth, every sick detail about Ethan's past, his pattern, his cycle, Maya's involvement, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused, cold, clear, done playing defense. I waited for Ethan to panic, waited for the cracks to appear, waited for him to feel the walls closing in. And they did, because Kane leaked something, indirect, just enough to spook Ethan's online contacts, just enough to make his predator network believe he was cooperating with police, just enough for them to cut him off, threaten him, leave him exposed. Then Derek positioned the rest of the dominoes. We made sure Ethan knew the plea deal wasn't going to save him. We made sure he heard rumors about prison, what happens to men like him. We made sure he believed his ankle monitor had technical issues. We made sure he thought escape was his only option. We didn't lay a finger on him. We didn't violate a single law. We just let him show the world who he really was. A coward who runs when cornered. On a Thursday night, 3 days before his pretrial hearing, Ethan bolted, cut through a shopping center parking lot, got in his car, drove south on I-75 like a ghost was choking him. But we knew exactly where he was going. A cheap motel in Toledo where he'd stashed a go-bag months earlier, and so did the bail recovery team. Julio's guys were already staged. The state police were already briefed. I watched everything from a distance. Far enough to be invisible, close enough to hear the sirens. Close enough to see Ethan's car screech when he saw the roadblock. Close enough to see him panic like the scared little boy he never stopped being. He tried to run, on foot, into the woods, which was a fatal mistake, because a predator running into the dark doesn't look like a man trying to survive. He looks like a man trying to disappear with another child. So when he lunged at an officer holding what looked like a weapon, they took him down. Later, we learned it was just a phone. But in the moment, no one cared. And I didn't either. I stood there, hidden behind trees, watching the EMTs load him onto the stretcher. Watching the blood pooling along his temple. Watching the life drain out of the monster who'd tried to steal mine. He lived. But the Ethan they took to the hospital wasn't the same man who crawled out of Lily's bedroom. His brain injury changed everything. No charm. No lies. No manipulation. Just a broken, confused, diminished shell. Barely able to string a sentence together. The trial was a formality after that. The evidence came unearthed. The testimonies. The blackmail victims. The psychological profile. The escape attempt. The jury came back in 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. 45 years. No parole. Sex offender registry for life. And the judge's final words to him were the closest thing to poetry I'd ever heard. You will never touch another child again. Maya's reckoning came slower. She wasn't charged with aiding the 2016 abduction. But the investigation destroyed her career, her reputation, her public image. She lost nearly everything except supervised visitation. Lily refused to see her. Noah went twice, then stopped. I didn't persuade them either way. Some wounds can only be handled by time. But my kids healed. Not quickly. Not cleanly. Not without nightmares and therapy, and nights I sat beside them until sunrise. But they healed. And we built something new. 3 years later, we live in Traverse City. I run a child safety consulting firm with Derek. Kane does digital work for us quietly in the background. No one knows what he really does except us. Lily is 10 now. Noah is 12. They laugh again. They sleep through the night. They made it out of hell. And I did too. People sometimes ask me if I regret anything that happened with Ethan. And I always tell them the truth. You can't regret protecting your kids. Not ever. Then I always add, and everyone talks about karma like it's a natural force. I give a small, tired smile. But sometimes, karma needs a damn assistant.